Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vitality Secret podcast. I am delighted to be here with Nicola Corcoran, who has an impressive story of how she has reversed her cancer. Nicola is on the database for Radical Remission, and I was so intrigued to hear about her story. I wanted to bring her story to you. We were connected via a mutual friend of ours. We actually have a common connection back in the UK in that we both live in the Brighton area, or I did, and she's near there. Without further ado, without me rabbiting on, welcome, Nicola. Thank you for being here on the podcast.
Hi.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, really nice.
When we spoke last week, I just thought we could just continue to talk for hours because there's so much resonance there. And your story is so impressive. So can you start by just explaining what happened, your diagnosis, when it was, what it was, your prognosis, that kind of stuff?
So I was diagnosed almost 12 years ago with invasive ductal carcinoma of the right breast. And I had a very diseased breast. So I had widespread ductal carcinoma in situ. I had 2 tumours and I had early onset Paget's disease of the nipple. So I was 40 at the time and I was diagnosed because I had swine flu. So I was bedridden for about 6 weeks with swine flu. Obviously, my immune system was completely on the floor because I had cancer. So when swine flu came, I was very ill. I lost a lot of weight and I found my tumours that way. So I had surgery because I was so ill. So at the point of my diagnosis, I had my mammogram in a wheelchair. I couldn't actually walk. Which was kind of scary because I didn't know at that point what that was. Was that end-stage cancer or what was that all about? So in between my first surgery and my second surgery, there was a 2-week period where they took my breast off and then they wanted to take my lymph nodes out of my armpit. And everything changed in between the first week, those first 2 weeks. So the first time I went in for my mastectomy, I was eating brownies. Up until that point when I'm not allowed to eat. You know, they say like don't eat after midnight. I was stuffing brownies in and I was eating crap. And then by the second surgery, I had a little bag of nuts and some filtered water, and I'd done my research and I decided that I was not going to have chemotherapy or radiotherapy or tamoxifen. I was going to heal naturally because I realised that I was in such a bad state. My body was so poorly that I really believed that allopathic medicine would kill me at that point.
Oh, wow. So that like an intuitive knowing, was that like a hunch that you had, or were you already in kind of holistic health?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
No, I wasn't at all. I thought I was. You know, when you think you know, but then you find out that what you know is maybe 0.5% of what there is to know. It was an utter revelation to me that, you know, I felt like I was peering through a portal into a different world, and it shocked me. It shocked me that I didn't know that stuff, that I wasn't raising my children that way with that kind of idea about health and the immune system. They were 3 and 6 when I was diagnosed. So my cancer diagnosis changed everything for all of us because I realised quite quickly that, I couldn't just treat myself. I had to treat all of us in the same way. So we had to change everything about our lives. It was amazing, actually.
When you mentioned your children, I immediately thought of my mother's diagnosis. I think I was 14 or 15 at the time.
Wow.
She had breast cancer as well. I don't think I said this to you last time we spoke. No. So she did actually have chemo and radio, and she had the lump removed, but not the whole breast. And thankfully she's around today.
That's amazing.
But receiving the diagnosis or receiving the information from my mum was heartbreaking. So I can only imagine what your children must have thought. I mean, they were so young. Did they understand?
My 6-year-old, so my children are very intuitive. And I think I told you the other day, we've home educated them. So they're quite intact with their emotional intelligence, their articulacy. They're quite amazing, but they're very amazing humans. So my 6-year-old told me, I said, I have a lump in my breast. And he sat on my lap and said, okay, don't get angry with your lump because you're going to make it grow. So they totally were, you know, they've been huge teachers for me. Wow. And my 3-year-old asked me, she was very concerned that if I had the breast off, was there going to be like a gaping Tom and Jerry style hole? So they, you know, we talked a lot because I realized very quickly that in the absence of information, children make stuff up, and it's much worse than what you could tell them. So yeah, we talked to them very early on about what it meant and what it was. And also I believed very early on that I wasn't going to die. So I remember when they were maybe about 4 years later, we went to a local fair in London, like a village fair. And there was a big banner up and a table set up for fight against cancer. And they both said to me, why would you do that? Because they didn't have any fear of cancer. You know, we didn't talk about it in those terms.
That's so interesting. Yeah, that's a huge point. I'd love to come back to that later on, because that whole fight cancer thing is something to consider, isn't it?
Something to unpick, definitely.
Yes, better word. Thank you. Definitely something to unpick, because maybe cancer is not what we think it is. I know going back to a diagnosis then, so you had the diagnosis and then you had the surgery very quickly.
Yeah, it was about a month. Well, actually, it didn't feel quick. I mean, I would say to all people diagnosed recently with cancer, I'm just going to tell you now, that first bit's the worst bit. When you're just waiting, you feel disempowered, you feel at somebody else's mercy. I think what I learned very quickly was that I could empower myself by making choices around my healthcare. So rather than feeling like I was on a conveyor belt, you know, 1 week for a PET scan, another week for a nuclear medicine scan, a bone scan, whatever, all these things, you quite quickly can feel disempowered and give yourself over to somebody else. But what I realized very quickly was my oncologist was he was treating people and working on a kind of percentage scale. Like he had to almost meet a criteria to keep, I think my prognosis was 65% of women in my position would be dead within 5 years. No, sorry. 65% would be alive within 5 years. Get that the right way around. So I just thought, well, you don't care which bunch I'm in. You don't care whether I'm in the 65% or the 35%. But I care because I've got 2 children.
Right.
And I also realized that the way he was treating me was he didn't really care if anything he did to me, not him specifically, but, you know, any treatment he gave to me, he didn't really care if that was going to kill me beyond the 5-year mark, because a successful remission from cancer or survival is 5 years, right?
Yeah. That's a crazy point, isn't it? Successful remission is 5 years.
Yeah, even if you die after 5 years, 5 years and 2 days, you would be a tick box. Wow. But I was like, but my kids will only be 8 and 11. That's not long enough for me. So I quite quickly removed myself from his care, because he wasn't looking at me as a woman in a wheelchair at this point. He was saying silly things like, are you worried about losing your hair? And I was like, well, not really. I'm worried about not being able to bring my children up. And I also realized that our immune system is what's going to fight cancer, right? We all have that innate immunity, and something had gone wrong with my immune system. And so knocking it out further for me at that point seemed like a very, very bad idea. What I needed to do was build it up. I've always felt that I've never really fasted or had lack or less of. I've always felt like I need more, like I need nutrifying. The lack for me was what got me ill in the first place: lack of sleep, lack of nutrients, lack of good food, lack of knowledge. And what I've learned in the past few years, and if I've been on retreats, I'll be the only one eating, everyone else is fasting, and I'll be like, just bring me all the food. I need to be like, there's some lack there, maybe emotional. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. I'm just going to plug in because there's this. Is it very noisy behind? Actually fine. It's just there's a very loud tool behind me going on. Can you hear this? So your oncologist kind of viewed you as a kind of almost a statistic, and you didn't really feel cared for. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to him because he was such a. Can I swear?
Sure. Go for it.
He was such an arsehole. You know, his care, he had such a lack of bedside manner. He was so busy and bored with it all. He left the door open while he gave me my prognosis. People were walking past. He was such an arsehole that he made me go, hang on a minute, something's not right here. He made me really think about it. And I couldn't, if he'd been a great oncologist, maybe I would have been talked into those therapies that I didn't want. But because
Interesting.
I felt like everything was beautifully synchronicitous. Everything got me to where I needed to be. I never regretted a single choice I made. I mean, actually, that's a lie. I regretted the second surgery because I didn't realize, you know, you learn very quickly, but I didn't realize that those surgeries to take out lymph nodes are staging surgeries. So they
staging, what does that mean?
So what it means is if they find a certain level of cancer in your lymph nodes, they would tweak your treatment. So if they had known that I was not going to have chemotherapy, they probably wouldn't have done that second surgery. And if I had known that, I wouldn't have also had that second surgery, because they didn't find any cancer. They found cancer in one lymph node in the first surgery, and then they took 33 lymph nodes out in the second surgery, and there was no cancer. And that scar is the most painful. They just cut straight through muscle. You know, that's not great for your lymph, is it? I had to retrain my lymph with lymphatic massage.
Oh my goodness.
That's a devastating surgery, actually, under your armpit.
My mum had that. Yeah, I remember her having that. Yeah. Wow.
That's a really tough one. And so I think if I'd really understood that, because at that point I was starting to operate from a more love-based place and a less fear-based place.
Yeah.
I think
you just hit the nail on the head with something. The love and fear. It's almost, I went on a bit of a cancer investigation in 2015 because I lost 3 friends to cancer in the space of a year. And I had an intuitive knowing that they didn't have to suffer the way that they did. And I was already in health and wellness. I was already all over the inflammation thing because of my dad's stroke and my eczema for 30 years, how everything has an underlying cause, and how just about every cancer is a result of chronic inflammation to a degree. And I was convinced in 2015 that they went through hell for no reason. And I watched a few documentaries and I read some books on it. And what became apparent to me is that it's almost like people are instilled with fear.
Definitely.
And it's almost, whatever we see in the media about it, it's fear-ridden. It's like, be scared of this thing. It's going to take you down. And my understanding, thankfully, I've never had cancer, touch wood yet. It could happen.
I doubt it, the way you're living.
Well, yeah, hopefully. We never know, though. I could end up living on a toxic chemical plant or something without knowing, or have an emotional event. Who knows? I'd like to think I won't, but it could happen.
The difference is, though, if you did get cancer now, you would have such a wealth of knowledge to not be sucked into that fear pit and not think that cancer equals death.
Yeah, totally.
Did I tell you when we spoke the other day? I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
Actually,
Let it flow.
I'm a big interrupter.
Please
when
go.
my kids were a bit older, so when I was here, we'd moved to Lewis, we moved out of London, we changed our lifestyle, we were homesteading. We went to London one day, and I said to them, and we were talking about the propaganda and the culture of cancer, and I said, right, every single thing we see today that's got cancer on it, we're going to take a photo, like if it's on the back of the toilet door, which it was at Victoria Station, if it's on a poster in Regent Street, and then we're going to think about the terminology and the wording that's used, and we're going to see how that infiltrates your psyche 50 times a day. I think we saw 30 posters that day, and they were in insidious places on the back of the toilet door: fight against cancer, run for the cure. It was most of the language is very combative around cancer. Yeah. And so it creates that idea that the only thing you can do is what you're being given, and you need to survive that treatment in order to survive cancer. You made me think of, Well, what I was trying to say to my children is don't believe the hype. Like, if you called it a conquer, or I love Andreas Moritz talking about cancer as a survival mechanism. Your body's trying to work to stay alive a bit longer. Yeah. So if you look at it, if you start to believe the hype, you're going to create a real fear. Whereas what I always say is you can absolutely reverse cancer. I know so many people who've reversed stage 4 cancer or who are living with it as a chronic disease. The first time you look at radical remission or Chris beat cancer, this is what I say to everybody that I work with cancer, if you type in your type of cancer and you see that one person has survived it, you can survive it. That's exactly how I view it. Yeah. Sadly, people go, oh, but that's not gone through randomized, double-blinded placebo trials. And then therefore it's not science funded by the industry. Yeah. If one person has reversed it, I just got goosebumps. If one person has reversed what you have, then exactly what you just said, it's possible. Find out what they did. And what else? It's not. I don't even think it's so much about what they did. I think it's finding your truth with it. So I remember at my kids' school, I remember a woman who's an anaesthetist saying to me, you've got quite a big ego if you think you can reverse cancer. You know, people have been working on this for years. What do you think Cancer Research UK is doing? And I said, look, I'm not being rude, but I made 2 babies and I have no idea how to do that on an intellectual level, but my body knows how to do that. When I cut myself, it doesn't surprise me that I heal. Like, given the right equipment, my body's made to heal. We're made to survive. That's what it will do. If I keep eating Mars bars for lunch and dinner and getting drunk every 5 minutes and taking a bit of drug, you know, if I keep living the way I was living and I'm happy and not in a congruent way, then no, I'm not going to heal. But if I change the environment that I got sick in, I really believe that. And actually, we don't get sick. My son, 6 months after I was diagnosed, ended up on a life support machine. Wow. He had a cough and he nearly died. And, you know, I've seen how we've reversed that propensity to disease in him. I've seen it with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. I've seen it with so many things the body can heal. 100%. But we're not living in a way that's congruent to that kind of healing. That's the problem.
Totally. So you're touching on the science of epigenetics here, which is determined, well, it states that it's the environment in the body that signals the genes. It's not the genes that trigger the illness. And this is 100%. True for about, 95% of the population at least. This is the case. In less than 5% of the population, they are born with so-called defective genes, or genes that are fully penetrant, which basically means the environment doesn't have much of an impact on whether or not that gene is expressed. And
however, I would say, though, even with those genes, are you thinking maybe about BRCA genes, for example?
Well, I don't know the specifics of the genes themselves, but sometimes whether they are expressed isn't in full control. Most people are actually in control of whether or not they express the gene, but some they aren't. That's not to say you can't completely reverse it.
Right. Or
it's just whether or impact. Exactly. It's just, it is that small proportion of the population that aren't in as much power, if you like, than the 95%. Sure. I guess that's a better way of saying it.
Sure.
But I just wanted to pick up on the environment, because what does it mean to have a healthy environment in the body to allow the genes to express in a healthy way? We can really go back to basics, can't we? And if we take a step back, we can understand where in the body we are not getting enough cell fuels, or where we're getting too many toxins. So malnourishment, too many toxins, and that could be physical toxin, it could be what we're eating, it could be environmental, it could be pesticides, herbicides, it could be mercury in the mouth, it could be any kind of toxin.
It could be emotional.
And thank you, that's an expert. So it could be mental or emotional, it could even be energetic. So
I call that toxicity and deficiency. I think that's the root of so much. And
thank you. That's what I was going to ask you. What's your definition of cancer?
I think it's toxicity and deficiency. I think it's also, I think it's massively, we were talking about this, weren't we, by email. I think it's, for me, I call it the 4 chair legs. So I call it mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. You know, if you sit on a chair and one of your legs is missing, you're going to fall over flat on your ass. So for me, I can really see how I got to cancer. It makes perfect sense to me. But I've done the 23andMe test. I think it's incredibly revealing. So for me, I don't move estrogen down very efficient pathways. I was put on the pill at 15. You know, I can see a picture of, okay, I was tired, I was breastfeeding, I had anxiety about my children because they were hard to conceive. So there's stress, there's a lack of nutrition, there's a toxic situation. I was living in London, I just was hanging to see a horizon, be by a fire. I could feel the pull for something different. So every chair leg for me was off whack.
Wow.
So the beautiful thing about that was it wasn't that hard actually to change stuff. You know, there were big changes, they were huge changes. And actually recently, my marriage has just fallen apart, my marriage of 27 years. And I think there's some healing to do in that as well. So, well, I think it is devastating, but I think you start to see the lessons in, right, how can I grow through this? How can I approach things in a different way without the narrative of stress or, combative language with anything? How can I take that to a place that it's for my healing? Because that's what life is, isn't it? It's a series of events, and those feelings create real chemical cascades in our body. They have a real impact on our genes. So we have power over that to some level.
100%. Yeah. Wow, I love everything you just said. I think it's amazing that you've got this approach to it. You know, it's incredible. I know that one of the questions in the book is, do you have any inclination as to what caused the cancer? And I read your profile, and you mentioned that it might have been the female contraceptive pill, which is alter the hormones, your estrogen levels in the body, which is very, very much closely linked with the breast cancer, isn't it? And other forms of cancer. And interesting what you just said around the anxiety as well. I noticed in the comment section underneath Radical Remission that some people don't like that question. And
yeah.
But well, I think it's just, I get it, because it's, most people have been made to feel so scared of it, right, that they are disempowered.
The distinction is not, can we blame you for your cancer, but can you take responsibility for your approach to life? I think that's what it is. So I didn't make myself have cancer. I didn't create it consciously in my body. No. Although a very good friend of mine, the first thing he said to me when he found out I had cancer, he went, are you enjoying your beautiful creation? And I just thought, wow, that's a brave thing to say to me. Whoa. But I took it on. I was like, okay. I mean, I think taking responsibility for our health means that sometimes we do have to take responsibility for our ill health.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. My story is 30 years worth of eczema. If my body gets toxic now, my skin's going to show me quickly. I can't ever say it's cured, because I could exactly do something that my body doesn't like, and then it comes back, and I see eczema as a symptom telling me that I'm out of balance. Right. Insomnia for me was a big one. 10 years ago, I was in a job that I hated. I couldn't sleep for 16 months. I'd go to bed at 11 and I'd be wide awake until 6 a.m. I'd fall asleep, and then I'd wake up at 8 and then fall asleep on a train on the way to work.
Wow.
That, from even then, I thought something else is going on here, and I wasn't happy in my work. So it's like my body giving me a symptom telling me that what I was doing wasn't in alignment with my calling, my heart, ultimately.
Spot on.
So there's so many things.
Have you seen an amazing book? I think it's by, I might be wrong here, but I think it's by Michael J. Lincoln. It's
I thought you were going to say The Vitality Secret.
Oh yeah, that's a great book. No, it's called Messages from the Body, and it talks about symptoms are just our body communicating with us. And I hold workshops for teenagers, and we talk about that all the time. Like, we don't shut down the flashing light on our car dashboard, do we, with a post-it note? We don't go like that.
I wrote that in my book.
Yeah. Did you? That's so brilliant. Okay, so
warning lights.
What are the symptoms? What is the conversation our body wants? And how do you become comfortable with your body talking to you? And how do you respond in a loving way that's nurturing and caring and, nutrient rich? Or like you're saying, it doesn't have to be about food, does it? It can be about making a change. And this is not working for me. This isn't suiting me.
Food can be completely irrelevant. We often hear, oh, this person tried juicing and this person tried juicing, it didn't work for them. It's like, hang on, food is just one thing of so many areas of deficiency and toxicity. Right. So I like those two things you just said, by the way. I talk about toxins and trauma basically causing illness.
Trauma is massive.
So deficiency in all of the things that we need to fuel the body, that can be that's not just food, that can be sunlight, the most powerful nutrient in the world, or on the planet, for me as well, grounding and water.
And for me, fire and community. I just felt a real urge to be around fire.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think it's about community. I think for me, London felt like there was a mismatch somewhere, and I'd had babies and I felt quite animalistic and something was wrong. And so to move to the country and home educate and find community, well, that's not a deficiency anymore, right? So we can tick that, and that feels like I'm feeding myself somewhere. But it could be anything, couldn't it? It could be, it doesn't have to be, we're not all the same. And that's why I think we need to, that's the problem, isn't it, with the allopathic model, is it treats everybody as if they're the same person. Well, we didn't all get to cancer the same way, or eczema, or asthma, or a stroke. We all did it differently. And so we have to retrace our steps gently with compassion for ourselves and sort of undo it and find out where we need to be, I think.
Yeah, totally. I think, absolutely. And And circling back to the symptoms part, you mentioned the same thing as I literally wrote this in my book. Symptoms are like warning lights on your dashboard. You don't get a hammer and just smash the lights out. Preferably, you'd take the car to the mechanic so the car is fixed at the root cause. And a better analogy might be, you don't take your car to an electrician to have the light rewired. You want to go to the mechanic to actually get the engine fixed.
I like to say cancer treatment in the West is like going to a tree surgeon and asking for a manicure, and you're going to lose your hand. And why are you surprised about that? It's brutal. It's a brutal response to your body trying to keep you alive. And I'm not saying, I think we have to be careful, don't we? Because I think that actually choice is power. So if you've chosen chemo, if you come to me and you've chosen chemo, I will support you with that choice 100%. Because I think that empowerment is powerful and hope is powerful.
Totally.
But there are definitely things to learn about nutrition and the body and the liver, and how you're going to protect your liver through chemo, or through, even what Gerson says is that's going to kill you if you detox your cancer too quickly. Your liver can't process that. So there's things to learn about the body, and actually how bonkers that we all have a body and we don't understand the systems in place, and we don't know how to take care of it. It just is crazy.
That's one of the biggest challenges I think we have. It's the system. It's the medical system, which I wrote about as well in 1910, about how it was created, this current drug-based system. We went from all these natural treatments prior to 1910 to basically a medical monopoly in drugs and surgery post 1910. Right. And the mainstream media has a lot to do with creating this narrative as well, which is why most people think drugs is medicine, or the only thing we can do for cancer is chemo, radio, and surgery. That's just, Western medicine is just one method of learning, but it's been monopolized, and people forget about all of the true ways to heal their body. I don't even consider them as alternative. They are healing routes.
I agree.
They are forms of medicine. They're not even alternative. They're forms of medicine. They're forms of healing, but they get the term alternative, which makes people think, oh, they're just not as good. Like they're like, oh, Western medicine is here and alternatives here. And it's a program that we're ingrained with since we're born. If we get sick, we go to the doctor, we get a drug, and it's just,
And it's interesting, isn't it, that it's very much only in the West, because there are other cultures using different types of medicine still now with massive efficacy, you know what I'm trying to say? Efficacy, that's the word.
Efficacy, yeah.
That's the word.
Actually,
actually, you know what I was saying? We're in this wellness workshop I was running yesterday, and we were talking about the immune system. And I was saying it's interesting that we would laugh at homeopathy, which has 500 million users worldwide. But we wouldn't necessarily laugh if someone said, you've got a sore throat, have a honey and lemon drink. There are things that we culturally accept. And then there's also this massive disconnect that bothers me, that the idea that what you put in your body in a food sense, why is that a stretch to understand that we're made of that and we need that? Like, we need those components, those natural chemical components to operate our cells. So that disconnect really bothers me when people go, well, you can't heal your cancer through food. You go, well, personally, I don't see that as a massive stretch to understand, if it's about deficiency or toxicity, that you actually could have a massive impact on your immune system and on your reversing your cancer through eating things that we've evolved for millions of years to eat to treat ourselves.
Completely.
That really bothers me, that disconnect.
Nature really has.
Well, I think that's why. The reason is because fast food is so sating for our brain, isn't it? So people don't want to give up. I have people saying to me, I would rather die than do what you're doing. When I was diagnosed, like, I'm only juicing and eating well. It's not like, what, because you couldn't give up a burger? It's bizarre to me.
Yeah. Food can be medicine, can't it? It's the food we eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. That's Anne Wigmore that you've probably heard. Yeah. It's amazing. I'd love to ask you, just on the diet front, what did you do for food?
So in that 2-week period, I gave up my diet. So I was what I call a Linda McCartney vegetarian. So can you imagine what that means? It means I just ate shit, but there was not meat in it. Okay. So I ate like a pre-made pie or whatever. So in that 2 weeks between surgeries, I just went, no salt, no sugar, no gluten, no dairy, no alcohol, no caffeine. my body had a massive response. So I had weeping sores covering 90% of my arms and legs.
Wow.
My body was like,
detoxifying.
Serious detox, right? And it was just so fast, and I started having to support my liver. But you know what I felt suddenly? I went, oh my God, I wonder if this is what well people feel like. Because I obviously couldn't really cope with dairy. So I always felt like I had a small kitten living in my lungs. And I always had itchy skin. And I always felt a bit tired. And my blood sugar was all over the place because I was always eating gluten and cake and, you know, dairy.
So you just hit 3 things that I always recommend: gluten, dairy, sugar. Did you take those all out then?
All out.
Just all out, yeah.
All
the fake stuff, all the crap.
There's no processed food.
No processed food. You just went real, true food. Amazing.
Real
and
food.
Juicing.
And juicing, juicing and coffee enemas. And I did
amazing.
I still do coffee enema every day now, 12 years later.
Awesome. Wow.
It's good for mental. I find it good, really good for the spiritual and mental clarity. I really love it.
I've got a podcast on it. Sorry?
It opens the third eye.
Yeah. Wow, I've not thought of that, but yes, because
really?
the clearer we get, and then you can really sift through all the bullshit, can't you? Straight to the truth. Do you know what I did,
actually? Do you know what I did in the beginning? I would do my coffee enemas, and I would ask myself questions while kind of getting into a meditative space, like what caused my cancer, or I had all the answers, and I would come out of that bathroom and I would write things down in my journal that I would read verbatim in books afterwards. Like I had the answers, and it gave me such a faith that I could access everything, anything. It was incredible. And I still do that now if I feel that I really need to focus on not maybe a problem, but a life choice or a decision. I will do a coffee enema and I will try and get centered in my body and ask that question.
That is so interesting. I think coffee enemas are amazing, and I've never considered them for that. I use breath work for that, and which is a form of meditation in of itself, and heart and brain coherence as well, which I do every single day. But I like that, using that time as a meditative time. What else was I going to say about enemas? I interviewed someone a few years ago who reversed her endometriosis and gastroparesis with vegetable juicing and enemas. She followed the Gerson therapy. She said, if Gerson can help me if Gerson can reverse cancer, then I can use that therapy to reverse my endometriosis, because cancer is like, one of the top in terms of severity. So, and that's what she did. And she completely reversed them. And she said, now, if I didn't do that, I'd be on 10 medications now. Right. So
and where does that lead?
Exactly. And then you're on that downward spiral of cocktail of drugs until So that was diet. I guess you took some supplements as well.
So many supplements.
Yeah.
Like 100 a day I was on in the beginning.
Wow.
And I did vitamin C infusions and hydrogen peroxide infusions. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I saw that in your profile as well. You understand that today, I'm sure you know this, vitamin C infusions is one of the best ways and most powerful ways people are getting by COVID, that.
Yeah.
They just have IV vitamin C put in their veins and it knocks it out. Can't say for 100% of people, but it's been effective and known since the start of COVID. Yeah. It's one of those treatments that's been suppressed, just like everything else over the last 110 years that works. Yet it's been suppressed, and people don't have access to this information, which is remarkably powerful for the immune system. So you did IV vitamin C. Did you do that regularly? Was that like
Yeah,
awesome.
I did it. I think I did it 2 or 3 times a week coming down from London to East Sussex. I'd drop the kids at school. I had one of those granny trolleys that I'd fill up with homemade food, and I'd do a 13-hour day on the train, having the IV and going back. And then, I did that fairly regularly.
Oh,
wow. And it was amazing. I really loved that treatment.
Amazing. How long is the actual treatment itself, though, the actual IV?
So my veins decided to collapse quite quickly. So I wasn't a great candidate for that. So I think it would take me about 5 hours. So sometimes I would have 2 bags of vitamin C, or 1 of vitamin C and 1 of hydrogen peroxide. I would have lots of different things.
Wow.
I did hypothermia, which was amazing. And then my doctor got shut down. So I was having IV mistletoe and doing a hypothermia treatment, and he got shut down. I don't know if he's even offering IV vitamin C anymore. They just made it so hard for him with the paperwork that he couldn't offer that stuff anymore. So it's not even about not knowing it exists. It's about then accessing it and finding it.
That's the hardest thing. I've thought with these times of COVID, I would love to just go and set up some naturopathic facilities in and around London, Brighton, where we both, have roots, or Lewis, and people in LA. I've got lots of friends in LA because I've spent a lot of time between LA and London. And you can actually just walk down the street and just pretty much just go into an IV naturopathic doctor and give me some vitamin C and some D in the bum.
Wow.
And that's easy. And, a friend of mine actually messaged me a few weeks ago saying I've got COVID, and he's attended some of my presentations on it. And he said, I'm doing this, this, and this. And 2 things were IV vitamin C and D, and then a few other things as well. Brilliant. So he just took a picture of him having the IV in the arm, and it was easy for him because he's in LA, but in England, it's not that easy. And
it's not that easy.
They don't, it's just, this is the bit that makes me angry, because if people knew about these kind of things since the start of COVID, no one would have the fear that a lot of people have.
Right.
But let's not go too much into the COVID thing. I'm just happy that you brought up, if vitamin C can be used for cancer as part of the protocol, it's not obviously not just that. It's it just shows the power of it.
I think that's really important. It's really important what you're saying, actually, because I think there's a lot of new research coming out as cancer as a metabolic disease. And so the idea that for some people, IV vitamin C actually makes their cancer grow, because you're shutting one fuel line, but you're opening up other, the cancer will get its fuel anyway it can. And so actually, I think a multi-pronged approach. I mean, my guy said to me when I first met him, there is no silver bullet. And I was like, right, you're my man. I like you. I know there's not a silver bullet, and if you were telling me there was one, then I would think you were trying to get my money.
Or going the other way, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had lots of lovely treatments with him, and then also things like lymphatic drainage were important to redistribute the lymph where that whole area had been cut and devastated really by surgery. So I really went through a lot of different treatments.
Amazing. It really is the true holistic way, isn't it? You can't just do one thing.
No.
The lymphatic drainage is massive. The lymphatic system, I'm sure you know this, but for listeners, the lymphatic system, I regard it as like the waste disposal part of the immune system. There's lots of ways the body detoxifies, but the lymphatic system is a way of getting rid of these dead cells, dead cancer cells, waste products, toxins. And the body requires for this to warm up ever so slightly, and for the body to be active, for it to actually be expelled.
Yeah.
And this is why one of the reasons why sedentary lives is really causing a lot of harm. And you've probably heard sitting is the new smoking. If we're inactive and we're not allowing that lymph to move around the body and to be expelled from underneath the arms and everywhere else, it's like it's becoming blocked, like an exhaust pipe becoming blocked. And lymphatic drainage is one way of doing it. And there's lots of other ways of doing it as well. One is just being active, and yoga and
rebounding.
Rebounding. That was featured a lot in the Truth About Cancer series. Getting that body moving and the heart rate up and a little bit of temperature increase is remarkably effective at allowing those toxins to leave. Hydration. I always talk about the 4 cell fuels: oxygen, water, nutrients. And the 4th isn't really a fuel, but it's a requirement that cells have, and it's to be able to eliminate waste and toxins.
Right.
Oxygen, water, nutrients, get rid of waste. And then we need sleep, and we also need to ground. We also need sunlight, but the sunlight is actually a nutrient, so that's kind of within that 3rd pillar. But it's,
it's kind of simple, right? It
really is.
We're removed. I tell you something really controversial about my cancer. I was working as an illustrator, and I was working on my computer for 14 hours a day, and I was wearing underwire bras, and I just had the way I was working on a computer was meant I just had my arm in one position. And I really believe that build-up of toxicity. I mean, my breast was incredibly diseased. Wow. My other breast had nothing in it. So I, for a long time, was like, really interesting. That if I'd moved, maybe that wouldn't have been the case, or who knows, I don't know. But it's made me more mindful to move. And then when we got a dog, I was like, wow, I've never moved my body like this before. I was doing 10Ks a day, easily with him.
Amazing.
And I think that movement of the body, you need to move your lymph, you need to get that power going from your muscles, build that electric.
Let's talk about the electrics. I know that I shared, this is called Healing is Voltage, if you're listening. There's a book called Healing is Voltage by Dr. Jerry Tennant. And understanding the body electric is one of the most profound discoveries I've ever had in the last 10 years of being in holistic health. And it's very interesting because I shared this book with Nicola, this video with Nicola, which is a 45-minute presentation. And what did you say, Nicola?
I said it blew my mind. It tied every single tenet of healing together that I've learned about in the last 12 years into one succinct 48-minute, because I looked to see that 48-minute lecture, and he built everything so gently. I went to a Bruce Lipton Day seminar once, and he did the same. He built everything so gently in components that you could really understand, until the kind of finale is your mind just exploding. It is just brilliant work, really brilliant work.
I jumped out of my seat when I saw that. And it was shortly after. The reason I got into the body electric was another part of my healing journey. I got sick because, in 2017, I had a very mild cold, but it wouldn't go away for over a month. And I thought, what is going on? I'm anti-inflammatory eating, and I'm active. I'm veggie juicing every day. I was living in LA. I was getting loads of sun. I was doing all of the things that I thought were necessary. I was calm. I wasn't stressed. That's one of the biggest dampers for the immune system. So I was thinking, what's going on? And I went to go and see a specialist, and he told me within 15 minutes that my phone had depolarized 3 teeth on this side of my mouth next to my phone, and it had compromised my immune system because we're basically wired up like a house, and our teeth are circuit breakers. And those 3 teeth were connected to my immune system. He said it's more than likely from your phone, but radiation or something has depolarized your teeth. So the treatment was nothing to do with food or exercise or anything like that. He used lasers on my teeth. And in 2 sessions, my cold went away. So all the lasers did was flip the polarity back to a negative charge. The voltage rised in that circuit, and then I was functioning again.
That's incredible. And actually, you're making me think now. Do you know, I love the Reiki, the acupuncture, and I go to see a sacrocranial therapist who just
amazing
does miracle things with me. And I think it's about exactly that. It's reminding the body how to be at its healthiest. And that's to do with electricity, isn't it? It's current.
Everything, the body electric. Everything I'm doing these days is around the body electric. If we understand that we're wired up like a house with different organs on different circuits, one thing that Dr. Jerry Tennant says is that a characteristic of all chronic illness is low voltage to an organ.
Yeah.
So it's like there's not enough power going to an organ. So instead of just taking a bunch of drugs, figure out why there's not enough power going to the organ. I used to be an electrician, probably another reason why I love this so much. But if a light starts flickering or it doesn't work, you do a bit of problem solving, reverse engineering, and you find out why there's not enough power going to your light. And I would find a corroded wire or something, or a faulty light switch, but you figure out the cause to raise the current, so more power goes back to the light. This is how Jerry Tennant does. This is how he helps people to heal, and people can do it themselves. And I've been learning how to do this as well. So if we start to think, okay, illness isn't a genetic disease, it's not a curse, it is a symptom of not enough power going to my whatever organ is in question. Why is that happening? And then we, on a very simplistic level, we can go back to what you were saying earlier, which is toxicity and deficiency. So cell fuels either become deficient or we have too much toxicity. And that, again, like we spoke earlier, it could be physical toxicity, it could be environment, it could be internal, it could be anything in the body which is toxic. And mercury is a big one. Infected root canals, as you saw with Jerry Tennant, is a big one. All kinds of things can affect the voltage flow. Scarring is one. EMFs is a big one when it comes to the body electric. So it's almost like you can reverse engineer an illness when you understand the principles of the body electric.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating work. And actually, I love the idea that, there's a lot of work about breast cancer as being, root canals, those sorts of things. There's a lot of talk about teeth on certain meridians.
Yeah.
And I just like the way that he explains it and ties it together, that you're interfering with the voltage. Yeah, it's really clever. Yeah.
Have you seen Root Cause?
Oh, I don't know.
It was pulled from Netflix for reasons I'm sure you know about,
Yeah.
but it was
No,
pulled.
I don't think I have, although I feel like the title's familiar.
You can get it on, I believe it's still available on iTunes. So, but it's everything we're just saying. It's the role of the teeth in the body, and the presenter, the creator of the documentary, had, I think it was chronic fatigue for years and years. He just couldn't figure out for the life of him what was going on. He did all these different healing modalities in the world. He did Western medicine and then all the other healing stuff. He just never got to the solution until he had his root canal out, and then his body healed.
And have you looked at the work of Weston Price and Ramiel Nagel? That's interesting work, because it really talks about the importance of the teeth and this idea that, you know, the teeth heal. You can heal cavities and decay through nutrients, through the pulp is alive. You know, they sit on meridians. Whatever is infections in your teeth will feed into your body. Of course, they're not separate, are they? They're fed through nerve systems and blood systems. So I think, I really love that video, because it kind of ties in all of that work. People think teeth are dead in the mouth somehow. I don't know. It's a weird idea, isn't it, that they're not connected somehow to our health or a reflection of our health, when they absolutely are.
Completely. And Joey Tennant talks about these pumps that our teeth have. And again, if they become deficient in cell fuels and the electrical flow drops, the pumps can stop working, and that's what causes cavities and teeth to fall out. But the teeth aren't dead. And I don't quite understand why they think it's okay to put mercury, which is I looked it up yesterday because I wrote a chapter on toxic environmental toxins the other day. And mercury in America is number 3 of all the toxic substances. And they put it in your mouth. Sorry?
Fluoride up there?
Yeah, fluoride's up there.
Right.
It's lower than the mercury. Like lead was above mercury, but there's I thought plutonium was the worst, but maybe it's because it's not very common. But mercury is definitely up there, and it's one that a lot of people are exposed to.
I actually did have my mercury taken out.
Oh, you did? What I was about to say was that needs to be done with great care.
Yeah, so my dentist wouldn't touch it for about 5 years. He just said, "You're not ready, you're not going to cope," which was interesting. I was like, "Get it out." And he's like, "No, we're going to wait."
That was good, because I think it really requires a holistic dentist or a biological dentist, someone who really knows what they're doing to take out mercury. Because I actually interviewed someone else who got mercury poisoning from taking the mercury out. And she didn't have it done with care. And she was actually signed into a psychiatric hospital.
Wow.
And it wasn't until a functional medicine doctor sprung to her rescue, and they chelated her body hardcore, like got all the metal out of her body. And then she slowly healed herself. But her husband could not understand what the hell, his wife basically just went nuts.
Well, because it loves fatty tissue, doesn't it? So it will be liberated and taken into the brain and the adrenals.
Completely. It goes through the blood-brain barrier.
Right.
And there's a smoking tooth video that shows that if a mercury tooth, or rather a mercury filling on a tooth, was rubbed with a pencil eraser against this screen, and you can see it vape. So as soon as it warms up ever so slightly, the vape from the mercury rises, and you can see it behind this screen and the camera that they use. So imagine what happens when people have all this mercury in their mouth. It rises into the brain.
It's off-gassing all the time, isn't it?
Off-gassing all the time, particularly when warmed up. My dad has had a lot of mercury in his mouth. My aunt's a naturopathic doctor and medical herbalist and all sorts of different qualifications. 20 years ago, she said, "You need to get your mercury out. Your blood is toxic." And he never did, because he didn't like the idea of having that, dental work done. But his blood was toxic. He had the warning signs. His sister saying, "Your blood's toxic, get the mercury out." And then sadly, he had hypertension, stroke, and so sad.
Sorry, that's really tough. That's tough.
He's not well at all now.
Well, the thing is, it's cumulative damage, isn't it? So it's not just that you have the mercury, it's that you have the mercury and the Wi-Fi and the radiation and the fluoride and the crappy burger and the meat that's, God knows what else in it, hormones. And that's the problem. Is I think we haven't just evolved to cope with this level. I mean, we're immaculate beings, aren't we? Our bodies are incredible. It's amazing, really, when you look at the body, how we come into existence and how we survive.
Oh, it's
we are
incredible.
made to heal, But actually, yeah, we're not made to deal with this. And I think that's what my needing to get to a fire and a horizon was about, a simpler life, because I could feel that toxicity. It hums in London, doesn't it? You can feel it.
Yeah. I've got a friend who reversed her Lyme disease. She's a very close friend of mine, and she had to move out of LA because that frequency, she was so sensitive to it. She's actually come down to here, to Mexico. She's over on the mainland right now, but she's done so much treatment. She's pretty much reversed her Lyme, and now she's got other things. But in fact, she has reversed the Lyme, but other stuff has kind of taken over. But it's remarkable what is happening to these cities, and this buzz that some people can even hear and are sensitive to. There's a book.
My son can hear it. My son at airports would freak out until we got him protectors and really had to be careful with him with homeopathy and stuff. He just he could see it. He would say, "Can you see that?" And I go, "No, what is that?" Yeah, he could see the electricity or the
Serious?
Buzz, the hum. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. How old's your son?
He's now 18. Oh, and you want to know another great thing? So when I was diagnosed, we got Wi-Fi protectors in our house and all sorts of things. My daughter was 3, and we didn't realise she was sleeping. Her cot was next to a bank of plug sockets. She never slept through the night, not once in 3 years. She'd wake up 5 times a night. When we got that Wi-Fi protector, she slept through the night.
Wow.
Yeah, so that stuff's powerful. People really poo-poo that stuff. Yeah. I think if you're sensitive to electromagnetics.
I just got goosebumps. I've got a 2 of my books are on the body. I should have my own book here, but I'm just showing you another one called Electric Body Electric Health. So I've just written a chapter as well on the invisible rainbow. And I just feel this is we're going slightly off topic, but it's not, because it's very related to anything and cancer. The author, Arthur Furstenberg, he's a scientist and journalist, and he has reported that going back 220 years, preceding every pandemic was an increase in electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah, I've been reading about that.
Oh, you have? Okay. So, and it's not just EMFs from cell phones or cell phone networks. It's just as you said, it's the power socket that you might be sleeping next to every single night. It's that buzz. That's started like 220 years ago or something. Yeah, that was the first part. It was wired up homes, and then it was radio frequencies, and then there was satellite, and all these progressions led to another outbreak of some kind of pandemic.
And this is our evolution, right? This is our evolution. So if we're healthy, we can cope with that vibration change or that energy shift. And then we've evolved to live in this new world. Yeah. But we're having to evolve. We're having to ask a lot of our bodies to evolve at that pace, I think.
And really fast. Yeah. Yeah. So some people, as you've just touched on as well, so I've got this fly just buzzing around my face. the perils of paradise. There's what was I about to say? I was about to say something so good. The fly just got in the way. Pandemic, cell phone. Oh my goodness. I had something so awesome to say just then. What were we just saying?
Oh, it's annoying. I don't know what we were talking about.
It was the meaning of. I was just about to come out with the meaning of life or something, and it's just gone.
Just edit it in. I know. Later.
Edit. So yeah, okay. So understanding the role of EMFs and how some people are sensitive to them and others aren't. I think that's what I was about to edge and go towards. Some people are more sensitive to them than others, and we are transitioning now. When we went from basic cell phone networks in the early 2000s up to 3G, 4G, it was like a slow increase. We've just gone from 4 to 5, massive increase, and our bodies are like they've not been introduced to it slowly. So some people are getting taken down by it very quickly, having no idea what is causing it. And this just reminds me of something that you said to me last week. Didn't you say in Lewis you're aware of all these animals dying when the 5G mast went up?
Yeah, my dog died of heart failure when the 5G mast went up, and he was 4 and really healthy, raw fed. Like you wouldn't believe, he was like a lion. He was a massive, healthy farm dog, unvaccinated. Is that allowed? Are we allowed to talk about that?
It's fine. It's a health podcast.
He was, and it was incredibly fast. Heart failure, from robust, healthy dog to dead in 8 weeks. And there was a little slew of dogs dying of heart failure at that time. So yeah, I think it's interesting. And dogs are very sensitive to EMFs, I think. Animals particularly are very sensitive to that.
My sister had a hamster die within days of it arriving back at the home. And I thought that was really odd. And that was around the time that the 5G mast went up in Brighton. Who knows? But I was quite suspicious of that. But it's definitely something we need to
anyway. Well, the problem is, the thing is, I think, is if you're healthy and clean and you're robust and you can cope with that stuff, like we can cope with stuff if we're doing all right. But if you're not all right, then you're stuffed, aren't you? Because you can't choose. I've got a friend actually who's just moved from Brighton back to Yorkshire because she could not find a flat. She's very sensitive to EMFs. She had a lot of dental work done. She just couldn't find a flat that wasn't within too tight a radius of a mast, phone mast or electricity cable or something. So she left. She was like, because I have to have control over that for my own health. And that's a difficult thing to control as everything's becoming blanket coverage.
I know.
Yeah, so I think that scares me a little bit. I mean, I don't like to live in fear, but I like the fact that most of the things in my life I can control is a difficult word, isn't it? But, I can make choices about. So we've got farms here. We can buy farm food. We can buy organic food. We can choose not to walk pesticided farmland or forage on pesticided farmland. But things like bigger things start to become slightly oppressive, don't they? Because they're beyond our control.
Yeah.
Unless you move to Baja, and then you're probably all right.
Yeah. One reason I love this place is there's no 5G. And I walk barefoot to the beach. I mean, I'm clearly privileged to be able to do this, although I'm probably paying half what you're paying in Brighton. Right. So yeah, it's just being as close to nature as I possibly can get during this this whole time. But yeah, sometimes it's harder for people to make those choices, just as you're saying. And you also mentioned earlier ways to protect your home from Wi-Fi and all the EMFs and other dirty electricity. It's important, isn't it?
Yeah, and also what we were talking about last week is, we are very lucky to be here by the sea. So I've started sea swimming, which I'm going to do year round. So, but you could find your local park. You could ground yourself in your local park all year, shoes off.
Yeah. All about the body electric.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get all of my clients grounding within the first week. I encourage them to start grounding in the first week. And I also recommend grounding sheets and pillowcases and mats. So when they're at their desktop or their computer, they're grounded whilst they're at the desktop, at their desk. It's huge. It's one of the simplest of things. And knowing that we are electrically charged and that the sea is the ground is like a sea of negatively charged electrons. We absorb them. It reduces inflammation. It's so basic. The sun is anti-inflammatory. The ground is anti-inflammatory.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? There are lovely studies done on that if you need your science, aren't there? So.
Oh yeah, there is. There are.
Yeah.
There's actual solid scientific evidence that grounding reduces inflammation. We've gone over the hour. I'd love to circle back to more of your experience, because we could probably just talk for hours.
Keep going, yeah.
So let's circle back to your experience in being cancer-free 12 years on. That's incredible. You didn't do chemo as you were recommended. You didn't do radio as you were recommended. What's one of the biggest messages that you can get out to anyone who is suffering from cancer right now or has been diagnosed with cancer right now?
I would say really believe that you can heal. It's really possible. If you want to heal, it's so much easier now to access information. When I was trying to find stuff, man, it was hard work, but now there's a real sea change. So there's a sea change enough that insurance companies are now asking, did you decline chemotherapy? Well, that was not happening 12 years ago. Did you have it? Wow. Yes or no? They didn't even, my oncologist couldn't believe that I was declining on chemotherapy. You have a choice. That's the thing. So do you know what I would say, actually? The main thing that is a really heartfelt thing to say is do your research and make a choice based on that. Don't feel like you're having to do something against your will. Don't feel like there's not a choice. That disempowerment is very dangerous, I think. So really believe that you have the power to heal, and however that may be, you can get help with that, you can get support with that, you can support your body through that. I think that's the thing, because like I said to you, I haven't been ill for 12 years. I mean, it's not like I've had, I've gone back and had cancer bouts or touches with cancer. I just haven't had that. So that's not to say that I don't think about cancer. I'm very mindful of cancer. And that's not to say that I don't have scares. Like if I, get a cough, I think it's a backpack that you probably always wear, to be honest, because there's so much indoctrination. So I have to work really hard to let go of those fears and to think this is not, this doesn't have to be cancer, this cough, or even if it was cancer, this cough, I can deal with that. So I think maybe for a younger generation, we can hope that they don't have that indoctrination, that mindset that cancer is something to be scared of.
So amazing what your children said. I think you said your son. That's incredible.
They're amazing. Yeah.
That's
actually, we've had some tough lessons because we've lost friends, and that's been tough for them to go, hang on, wait, what? I thought you didn't have to die of cancer. And I'm like, well, you don't have to die of cancer, but some people do. So yeah.
How do you view your experience now? This is a slightly odd question after you've just said that. So I want to try and be mindful and sensitive to people who are really suffering. What's your overall feedback from having suffered it or gone through that experience?
Right. So for me, it's been life-changing, brilliant.
In a good way.
My kids regularly say, thank God for cancer, because we moved to the country, we've home educated them for 8 years. They've had a totally different life experience. The way I communicate with them, you know what, we just realized life is not for enduring hard bits till you get to the easy bits. We're not guaranteed to be here. It's not our right to be here. Let's live every day and every minute like we mean it. Let's live it in technicolor. Let's really appreciate it, because a lot of people are just sleepwalking through life thinking they're going to get to a good bit at some point. But cancer will teach you. I mean, cancer taught me that I'm going to die. Wow. Not now, but I am going to die. That's a massive thing for your brain to understand. And that really does make you look at life in a different way, I think. Well, my experience has been that, definitely. Yeah.
Would you consider it a wake-up call?
A huge wake-up call. I call it the biggest kick up the arse to get my shit together. Yeah, just start living like you want to. Start having a congruent life. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah.
And I was going to say, I've had such an incredible parenting experience as a result of cancer, because I've been really present with my kids and I haven't taken any of it for granted. We've had just a fantastic time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. Just amazing what you've done. Congratulations. There is one question that I just thought of in that book, or one statement that I saw a few people say, and they even went as far as to say cancer saved their life. And you've just kind of mimicked what they have said. It's an opportunity, isn't it, to kind of rethink what it might be. And you talked about your definition earlier as being deficiency and toxicity. I love that. Where are we deficient? Where are we toxic? And kind of reverse engineering almost.
And I would also like to say, I think it's important to know that some people find their cancer late and it's hard work to reverse it. So I think being mindful of that, and, I don't know if you know Sophie Savage's work. She wrote The Cancer Whisperer.
Oh, I've definitely heard of her. Yeah, I've not read that book though.
It's a very beautiful book. She wrote some things about healing is not always about surviving. And I was very keen on this in the beginning. Like, dying is not failing. Dying is not failing, and healing can be. We've supported friends with good deaths and making your peace with that. And so I think there's this idea about winning and losing, battling and losing. And I think we need to just change that whole narrative around cancer.
Yeah, amazing. I heard as well that with Gerson, we've gone quite over the hour. Gerson, this was whilst having a colonic hydrotherapy a few years ago in LA. She was telling me about working with the Gerson Institute, and they said with Gerson, when they have a patient with cancer, they say they get the patient to actually make peace with the cancer, and even if they can, to even be grateful for it.
Right.
Thank you for the message. Thank you. And by the way, this is so much easier for me to say because I've not gone through what you've gone through or anyone else has gone through. So it's easier for me to say, obviously, but if we can be grateful for the tumor, that's what I was hearing from Gerson.
I used to thank I know we've gone over, but just quickly, I had RGCC Greek testing, so I knew there were circulating stem cells and circulating cancer cells in my body. And so I used to, rather than imagine that idea of them being nuked, or, you know, I would meditate on those cancer cells and say that I would invite them to come back to being normal cells now that they've done their job. And that, I never do it when I was trying to count through thousands of being gobbled or sharks or whatever that other, you know, that mindset is of annihilating the cancer cells. I just thought, no, because they were trying to survive and I need to be grateful for them, and look what they've brought me. So I could go through getting rid of loads if I imagined a macrophage gently scooping them up with love and saying thank you for, you know, surviving, but you can just rest now. Because I think there's something in us, isn't there, that survival mode, you know, we can relate to that. Surely that's what we're doing. For
sure. Yeah. Wow. That's so
powerful. I don't think you're wrong to say that. I think everyone's cancer experience is different, right? So we have to be mindful that for some people it's difficult and it's painful or scary, or they're lonely, or they're ill, you know, and I've been lucky that I haven't been ill. So there's some clarity with that. And you can make some changes. But maybe, you know, for you to support people with cancer, that's a massive blessing, right?
Yeah.
And when I support people with cancer, I speak cancer language, so I understand the fear that comes with it. So that's a blessing. So we just need to communicate better about this. We need to remove this kind of polarity about cancer, about it being evil and we have to fight it and it's a killer and all that stuff. We just stop that now. Yeah,
couldn't agree more with that. We need to think differently. Einstein said no problem can be solved with the same level of consciousness that created it. And Nixon declared a war on cancer back in the early 1900s. And it was like, we're not winning that war. Let's think about it differently. What is it? Maybe it's not what we're being told it is. Maybe we do have more power to heal ourselves than we've ever been allowed to believe.
Right.
I always ask people to offer their number one vitality secret at the end, and I never give you a warning.
Whoa, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Okay.
What would be your number one vitality secret for the listeners?
Mine would be definitely laughing. I think raise the vibration. Yeah, and that can be hard to do when you're feeling fearful. So that works. It raises the vibration really quickly.
You just reminded me of someone I interviewed in Brazil 2 years ago, a very, very vital 78-year-old avid windsurfer, like a wave rider. That's a big time thing to do in your late 70s. Yeah. He got through cancer and he used laughter therapy as he would say most of it was down to laughter and humor and love around his family. And
my ex-husband used to, he said he was in charge of laughter therapy and he would find us movies and he would get on the comedy. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's
powerful.
Knowing about what happens in the body, how the brain is like a chemist. So we secrete different chemicals and hormones based on whether we have a thought of love or we have a thought of fear. We have a very different secretion of chemicals that follows those. And laughter, of course, is a very high frequency emotion, and it's one of love, and we're going to secrete a very different concoction of chemicals because we can secrete our own chemicals. That's why how the placebo effect works.
Right. So, and also it's one of safety, isn't it? Laughter.
Yes.
Laughter creates a feeling of safety.
Yeah, so true. So true.
No, I love that idea. I think that emotion thing, that is real chemical cascades having real effects on real cells and real organs in your body.
Yeah.
And this is hormones.
Exactly, and this is also scientifically proven now. It's not even woo-woo. How chemicals of love secrete a different concoction of chemicals compared with chemicals of fear. They know it.
I read also that your tears also have different chemicals depending on the emotion behind your crying.
Oh wow!
As a means of detox, I guess.
Wow, that's amazing. I saw something on that a few days ago about salt. Why do we have tears of salt and we have an ocean that's also salt? What's all that about?
Nice.
Who knows? Well, thank you, Nicola. That's been really amazing.
It was so fun.
Do you have any closing remarks, statements, thoughts, insights, anything you'd like to offer your listeners? Or would you like to offer for them to be able to contact you, or is there anything you'd like to offer?
I mean, I can't think of anything at this point without going into a whole nother hour, but I think I would like to thank you very much for that insight into that video today. That's really made me very happy.
Oh,
so I'm really grateful for that.
Healing is Voltage. You're very welcome.
Yeah, that's really generated some energy in me. I like that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicola. That was amazing.
Thank you so
You're
much.
amazing.
So lovely. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.